Hello, and welcome to the inaugural event of Circular Economy Week 2022. My name is Wayne Hubbard, and I'm the CEO of London, which is a partnership of the Mayor of London and London's Borough Councils. We have a mission to help London increase recycling, reduce waste, and accelerate the development of a low carbon circular economy. It's our fifth Circular Economy Week. And this year we have more than or almost 60 events throughout the week and more supporters than ever before. This year, I should just say our headline sponsor is Cleveland Steel and Tube. So thanks to them for making this possible. And if you are interested in the built environment, join their event this afternoon. They will talk about steel reuse. And also, I'd like to just flag up the London Environment Directors Network, LEDNet, who are sponsoring Wednesday, which is a day focused on local government. So if you're in local government, you might want to have a look at some of the events on Wednesday. So we're kicking off Circular Economy Week this year by launching our new Jobs and Skills Report, the Circular Economy at Work. This quantifies the potential for circular economy jobs in London and what kind of skills, training and education needed to make them possible. I guess why is it that we need a circular economy? Is it relevant still today? The concept has been around for a while. And I think it's even more relevant today than it ever has been. A circular economy is a resilient economy with smaller supply chains. It can help redistribute goods, and it can also help with recovery. So I think a circular economy is as relevant, if not more relevant today than it's ever been. A circular economy can help us thrive economically through the provision of good quality, well-paid jobs for Londoners. And we've discovered some really important things as a result of this work. We've defined circular economy jobs, including core, enabling, and indirect circular economy jobs. And by looking through that lens, we see them everywhere across the whole economy. And I think it's clear to us more than ever before that circular economy is not a sector. Circular economy is the economy. It goes through the whole system. It's made up of people not just involved in waste, recycling, reuse, and repair, but it pervades everything. And I think increasingly will touch upon everyone's lives. We've identified that there are currently about 230,000 circular jobs in London. And if we were to hit the Mayor's recycling targets by 2030, we estimate there'd be an additional 284,000 new circular economy jobs. Making around about 500,000 people involved in the circular economy over the next 8 years. These jobs are generally better paid at every level and can be found at every skill level across a diverse array of sectors, making them accessible to all Londoners. And we'll hear more on this in a moment when I ask my colleagues to present the report. But the main conclusion really is there's a double dividend. It's not just good for the environment. The circular economy is also good for the economy. So that's our thinking today. And we'll talk a bit about that later on and go into some detail. But to start today, we have an introductory video by the Deputy Mayor of London, Shirley Rodrigues. She's the Deputy Mayor for Environment and Energy. So I'd like to hand over to a video from the Deputy Mayor.
Hello, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you all today. My name is Shirley Rodrigues. I am Deputy Mayor for London for Energy and Environment, and I'm sorry not to be with you in person, but I'm delighted to be part of this important event launching the 5th annual Circular Economy Week. I'd like to thank our host, London, and the exceptional panel of experts you're going to be hearing from this morning. The Mayor of London, Sadiq declared a climate emergency in 2018, and he's accelerated his target for London to be a net zero city, to be one that is net zero by 2030. Whilst this is a significant challenge in its own right, the capital is simultaneously dealing with the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic and the cost of living crisis. And the Mayor is tackling these challenges in London head on. We know that the circular economy is a vital part of the solution. And that's why the Mayor is committed to doubling the size of the green economy by 2030. And accelerating that transition to a circular economy is a key tenet of his London Environment Strategy, and it's firmly embedded in the new London Plan, the Spatial Development Plan for developers. This London Plan has brought forward the requirement for developers to submit a circular economy statement, setting out how they will incorporate those principles into the construction and operation of proposed developments to reduce waste and the associated carbon emissions. In addition, the Mayor is proud to be supporting circular SMEs, and through London is delivering a range of programmes for London, which you'll hear about today and throughout the week. London's labour force has been particularly hard hit by the pandemic, resulting in higher rates of unemployment compared to the rest of the UK, particularly for young people aged 16 to 24 and certain minority ethnic groups. The creation of circular jobs and skills will help tackle this issue while simultaneously helping the city transition to a circular economy. Keeping the stuff we produce in use for longer by repurposing, reusing and repairing it helps the economy, and we know that a circular model will create more opportunities for Londoners. For example, preventing 10,000 tonnes of waste means one job is lost in waste incineration, compared to the 386 jobs created in the prevention and redistribution sectors. The Mayor's ambition is to encourage Londoners, particularly those most impacted by the pandemic, to move into good jobs, and as part of the London Recovery Programme, he's looking to identify and strengthen the provision of green and circular skills in the capital through his Mayoral Academies programme. These are skills linked to occupations and tasks which will see an increase in demand as London moves towards a net zero carbon and net zero waste city. The Mayor's Green New Deal Fund, for example, has already invested £10 million in programmes that support around 1,000 green jobs. As part of this, we're proud to be supporting London's hugely successful business transformation programme for circular SMEs and expanding the Mayor's own Better Futures business programme, which supports those businesses in clean tech. This support has helped many of these businesses through the recent difficult times and supported the creation or safeguarding of hundreds of jobs. The Mayor's also launched a £32 million Good Work Fund, which deliver training and skills support to help Londoners secure good jobs in key sectors, and will continue to tailor London's annual £330 million adult education budget to support Londoners hardest hit by the pandemic into good work. This includes establishing skills academies that connect Londoners to jobs in key sectors, including low carbon, health and social care, creative and digital, and support them in developing the skills they'll need. The Green Skills Academy will initially focus on areas where there is high or growing demand for skills and jobs, including green construction, low carbon transport, green spaces and resilience, and waste and recovery and recycling to drive activity towards the circular economy. It's really encouraging that London's research has highlighted how circular economy growth could particularly help London's young labour force, as well as others who've been disproportionately affected by the pandemic, creating accessible, well-paid job opportunities for all Londoners. I was therefore really delighted that London's report, The Circular Economy at Work, Jobs and Skills for London's Low Carbon Future, has highlighted the potential of the circular economy in creating over 250,000 new jobs for Londoners by 2030. You'll be hearing more about that report later today, and I look forward to working with them and you to achieve these aims. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak to you today a little bit about what we're doing in London, and I hope you enjoy the rest of today's event and the rest of the week. I'm confident this will be another step on our journey to a low carbon circular economy in London. Thank you.
Great, thanks Shirley for recording that video for us. So let's go straight to the detail. Today, as I said, we're launching our new report, The Circular Economy at Work, Jobs and Skills for London's Low Carbon Future. And I'm going to hand straight over to Sarah Malone from London and Peter Mitchell from Valpac. And before I do, please remember, during their presentation, if you've got questions, do put them in the live chat, and there's time for a Q&A straight after. So Sarah.
Thanks, Wayne. I'm delighted to be able to present our latest report launched today on ReLondon's website. By way of introduction, I'm a senior advisor at ReLondon, and I led this report alongside Pete Mitchell from Valpac, who's responsible for the analysis behind the research and will present some of the findings today. I will start by giving a bit of background to our research before running through the headline findings from the report. So, we're facing a climate crisis. And in 2018, the Mayor of London and the majority of London's boroughs declared a climate emergency for London. This is already a significant challenge for the city, but we are now grappling with the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic and rising costs of living. And our research shows that Londoners have been particularly hard hit by the pandemic in terms of jobs, and this is especially true for young people and certain minority ethnic groups. So, to support these combined challenges, the Mayor of London has committed to making London a zero carbon city by 2030, and 3/4 of London's boroughs have set targets to reach net zero. The Mayor has also invested £10 million in green projects as part of the first phase of the Green New Deal. So given all of this, a significant amount of research has already been done across London to define and calculate the number of green jobs in the economy and its role in London's recovery. However, there is currently limited research that assesses the role of the circular economy and its contribution to London's green recovery. And we found that where research has been done, the definition of a circular economy is often limited to jobs in the waste and recycling sectors, or waste, recycling and repair sectors. But the circular economy is a lot more than this. And our research shows that it covers a whole range of sectors and jobs, from those in rental, reuse, design, sharing, logistics, and a lot more. And so our research aims to firstly incorporate all elements of the circular economy within a circular jobs definition for London. And secondly, calculate the number of circular jobs that exist now and the potential growth in the future. And thirdly, assess skills and training needs to support this growth and the development of a circular economy. But what do we mean by a circular economy? Well, at ReLondon, we define a circular economy as one in which stuff is kept in use for as long as possible, delivering the highest value it can for as long as it can. So rather than making, using, and then throwing the stuff away, like we do in a linear system, a circular economy means looking at each of those stages for new ways of cycling materials and value back into the system. And it is this definition that we base our circular jobs research on. But before we get to our definition, what is the current situation for London's workforce? Well, we have around 5 million people of working age, with roughly 4.7 million of those with jobs. This leaves around 300,000 or 6.5% of Londoners who are facing unemployment. And this is even higher for young men and women, with over a fifth of young men without jobs and almost a fifth of young women without jobs. We also see that the pandemic has disproportionately impacted certain minority ethnic groups in London. For example, white Londoners saw job losses of around 1% during the pandemic, and this jumps to a 10% for certain minority ethnic groups. And this is important because a crucial element of London's recovery is ensuring access to future circular jobs by all Londoners and making the circular economy as inclusive as possible. And what we're about to show is that the circular economy is well positioned to support this, and that it can actually provide a wide range of good quality local jobs across various sectors and at a range of skill levels. So through this research, a circular jobs definition has been developed for ReLondon. So our definition builds on circular economy, circular jobs methodology, and it incorporates all activities and jobs that either directly or indirectly support the objectives of a circular economy. So what we've done is we've split these jobs into 3 groups: core, enabling, and indirect. Firstly, what we mean by a core job is a job in a business that ensures material cycles are closed and cycled for as long as possible at the highest possible value. And this includes jobs in sectors such as reuse and repair, renting and leasing of products, as well as recycling of materials and resources. Secondly, what we mean by an enabling job is a job that enables core businesses to grow and scale up, for example, jobs in businesses that develop digital technology or provide logistics services. And finally, an indirect job is one in a business that provides services to core businesses, such as those in government and professional services. And so what our definition shows is that the circular economy is a system, not a sector, and therefore includes more than waste and recycling. And it actually includes all the sectors on this slide and many more. So I'm going to pass on to Peter, who will run through what this looks like in numbers.
Thank you, Sarah. So, having developed and refined the circular sectors for Re-London's definition with input from the projects board and stakeholder workshop, we then managed the jobs within each sector. We then mapped the jobs within each sector using official jobs data for London. The primary data source used is the ONS's Business Register Employment Survey. The next step was to estimate the number of circular jobs in each of the core, enabling, and indirect sectors. Based on existing studies by RAP and Green Alliance for the UK and by RAP for London previously, jobs in core sector businesses are 100% circular. So all posts within a core circular business are counted as circular, from admin and finance roles, design and marketing staff, customer services roles, production staff, leadership roles, and many more. Jobs in enabling and indirect sectors, however, are not all circular jobs. Drawing on circular economy's existing methodology, circular jobs in the supply chain of core sector businesses are proportional to the value of goods and services flowing between these sectors and the core sector. That varies by sector, and it's estimated in this research using input-output tables. In our research, we adapt the GLA's published input-output table for London to allocate the number of enabling and indirectly circular jobs. So what you see on the slide is an illustration of the approach. Here, a design business, which is in the enabling sector according to Re-London's definition, provides design services worth £100 million to London's core circular businesses out of a total supply of £1 billion worth of design services to all economic sectors. So in this example, 10% of the jobs in the design business are allocated as being enabling circular jobs. Finally, in our approach, jobs that are not in any way associated with circular economy are 0% circular, i.e. they're linear jobs. So according to Re-London's new definition, London's circular economy currently employs around 231,000 people. That's around 4.3% of all employment. 40%, or around 93,000 jobs, are in core circular businesses. 53%, or 122,000 jobs, are indirectly circular. And 7%, or 15,000 or so jobs, are in enabling sectors in London's circular economy. On average, for every 100 core circular jobs, in the supply chain, there are 15 enabling circular jobs and 130 indirectly circular jobs. The report we're launching today has much more detail beneath these headline estimates, as well as details on wages paid in those jobs. And the pay is decent pay. Average gross weekly pay in core circular jobs is £710 per week. That's 183% above the London living wage, with the jobs being widely dispersed across the capital. And we also estimate the economic impact that London's circular economy is already making. Circular businesses currently contribute around £11 billion to London's economy, in terms of gross value added. The splits are shown on the slide. 46% comes from core circular businesses and 54% from supply chain businesses. So as Sarah mentioned, the Mayor of London has set targets for London to be a zero carbon city by 2030, and 3/4 of London boroughs have set targets to reach net zero. In the report, we develop a circular transition scenario to estimate the number of jobs there could be in a more circular London by 2030. The scenario is driven by moving waste up the hierarchy, by preventing waste, using stuff wisely, renting not buying, making things well, and sharing and using stuff again through a variety of circular business models. We identify key waste streams to be handled by more circular approaches as London's circular economy expands. They are food, garden, dry recycling, textiles, electricals, and other municipal waste, which is mostly wood and furniture. The baseline tonnages for these streams are the GLA's figures published in the Mayor's London Environment Strategy. The scenario tonnages are modelled to align to the Mayor's targets, for instance, a 50% reduction in food waste per head and a 65% recycling rate. We project the circular jobs by linking to estimates of the number of jobs needed per tonne of waste. These jobs densities are sourced from the literature and supplemented by our own calculations. And it's clear that more circular means more jobs as you move up the hierarchy. We estimate preventing 10,000 tonnes of waste means one job is lost in disposal compared to 386 jobs created in circular businesses. Envisaged in this scenario is that London sees more reuse repair activity and rollout of new circular business models. But the main focus is on increasing recycling collections, particularly from businesses. Core activity in the scenario is supported by design changes that enhance recyclability and repairability, which together with communications activity drives behaviour change and waste prevention. In this scenario, some waste disposal jobs are no longer needed, and those job losses are absorbed by expanding circular sectors. The result is a circular economy in London with a total of 515,000 jobs. 100,000 core circular jobs are created in London, and the ripple effect from that creates a further 184,000 jobs in the supply chain. The report contains much more detail on the scenario. It shows around 500,000 tonnes of waste is prevented, and over 1 million tonnes of stuff is shared, donated, reused, and recycled. What this demonstrates is that a more circular London benefits the economy and the environment. More circular equals less waste, more jobs, and greater economic value, with a circular economy contributing around £24 billion in this scenario. And that highlights that growth in circular economy can make a substantial contribution to London's green recovery. The circular jobs created across London offer a wide range of opportunities to target upskilling and retraining, to leverage existing skill sets and promote a just and accessible transition. And this is where I hand you back to Sarah to take you through our findings on skills and training.
Thanks, Peter. So we know that there could be over 500,000 jobs in the circular economy by 2030, and in which sectors. But do Londoners have the skills to take these jobs? So our research shows that London actually benefits from having a higher skilled working age population compared to the rest of the UK. In fact, almost 60% of London's residents hold high skill level qualifications compared to only 43% in the rest of the UK. However, there is still over a tenth of the population with low or no qualifications. And what do circular businesses need? Well, what they need is a substantial number of Londoners with skills at levels 2 and 3 in core sectors, and almost 3/4 with skills at level 3 and above in enabling sectors. This highlights that there is a skills gap and there is a need for upskilling for Londoners with low or no skills to enable them to access these core and enabling circular jobs. But what the charts on the screen also highlight is that spread of skills that's required to support the development of a circular economy by 2030, meaning that there will be a wide range of jobs available in the circular economy for a wide range of backgrounds. So that's what the official government data has told us, but we also spoke to businesses about their skills needs. And interestingly, some of the key things that the larger businesses transitioning to become circular told us is that employees will need to have a baseline understanding of the circular economy. They'll also need to be able to influence others to implement circular economy principles, as well as change management skills to coordinate all departments through the transition to circular business models. We also spoke to some circular SMEs about their skills needs, and they emphasised collaboration skills as key to their success, as well as data analytical skills that will be needed to enable businesses to measure environmental impacts and conduct carbon footprinting, as well as visioning to reimagine materials and products and develop innovative methods to incorporate secondary, pre-owned, or waste materials into products. So it's clear a wide range of skills are needed across businesses either transitioning to become circular or which currently have circular business models. And the skills identified by businesses indicate where training and upskilling actions could be immediately impactful to create the conditions needed to transition to the circular economy. So finally, we asked businesses and training providers about circular training requirements. And what we found was that there are few options currently available for circular economy training. And where it is available, it is limited to a few postgraduate courses, and there's a general lack of relevant content within teaching in schools and colleges. And so there is a need for more general awareness of the circular economy, and therefore there are opportunities to embed circular economy examples in the school curriculum, further and higher education, and in top-up or short refresher courses for existing workers. So to conclude, from this research, we've shown that the circular economy is firstly, more than just jobs in recycling and waste. There are already 231,000 circular jobs in London. Secondly, the circular economy has the potential to contribute significantly to future job creation and economic growth. An additional 284,000 jobs could be created, and with the potential to contribute 24 billion to London's economy by 2030. But to achieve this, investment in retraining and upskilling is required, with training particularly targeted at those young Londoners and others disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. However, transitioning to a low carbon circular economy will require joint action at all levels of society, from national and local government, regulators, consumers, and businesses, as well as adequate support for innovation and collaboration across the supply chain. So that's what the research is telling us, but what's next for London? Well, this research has shown us the opportunities that the circular economy presents and where these opportunities are across London. So we will be using the findings from this research alongside other research on material flows to develop circular activities through our consumer-facing campaigns, borough and business support programmes to drive demand for circular products to create a market which will drive the jobs that we need to transition to a low-carbon circular economy. So hopefully we've piqued your interest enough to inspire you to read our report, which is on our website and which we'll circulate after the event. Thanks everyone for listening. Wayne, we're happy to take any questions when you're ready.
Okay, thanks Sarah and Peter. We've got a few minutes to ask some questions. So I'm just going to kick off. I'm interested that you spoke to business and they gave you some feedback to add sort of more flavour, I suppose, to the statistics. And I'd quite like to know, I don't know who wants to answer this, but can you give us an indication of the kind of businesses you spoke to? And also, would you be able to kind of tell us what specific skills or some examples of the kind of skills that we need to develop more as the circular economy grows?
I could pick this up. So we spoke to a handful of larger businesses from sectors such as textiles and those in furniture, so IKEA, H&M. We also spoke to some smaller circular SMEs that London works with across our 5 priority areas, so in food, textiles, plastics, electricals. And I think what really came through was the mix of skills that are needed right across the skill levels. So things like practical skills are really lacking at the moment in terms of sort of textiles where they're currently outsourced. But also skills in terms of the sort of higher skills at the management level to be able to make that case to board members for circular economy initiatives, and just to have that general knowledge of circular economy so that it's embedded right across the organisation. Those were some of the key things that we found out through our research. Pete, I'm not sure if you want to come in to add to anything that I've just said.
I would mention one of the things we heard was that roles in or skills in posts like public affairs will become much more needed, so that businesses can anticipate and react to policy changes and how those changes are driving the circular economy. So you know, those type of jobs might be more prevalent in circular economy as we go forward.
I think that that really kind of indicates how, when we say this is not a sector, this is a system, that indicates that systemic impact, because this will flow through everyone's through the economy and then touch upon everyone's life in some way. And actually, Peter, I was fascinated by the stat that you mentioned, that I think it was, as you reduce waste by 10,000 tonnes, you create 380 odd circular jobs, and against the loss of 1 disposal job. So just kind of thinking beyond 2030, what do you see as the potential waste reductive capacity of the circular economy? Because we've got one that is environmentally friendly, but also economically beneficial. So you mentioned this 11 billion number. So could you just kind of just talk us through that? It sounds like the economy grows, we reduce waste, and we thrive economically and environmentally. Have I got that right?
That spot on, Wayne. Correct. That's the triple win, really, isn't it? Though you get the environmental, the economic, and at the same time, you're it's envisaging the way that materials can be used and not be disposed as waste, and all of that is part of the design part of the circular economy as well. So yeah, as we go, as the circular economy transition advances, everything is moving up the hierarchy, and that's really interesting. That moving up the hierarchy creates more jobs, because that's essentially the labour intensity of those kind of jobs, which are the jobs needed in circular economy.
Okay, well, that's a good point to end that particular bit on. I'm going to ask one last question, and then I'm going to move on to the panel. And the question is, it might be unfair, I don't know. What is your ask of government and businesses in London? What can they do to help increase growth in circular jobs?
Well, the policy, they can make policy, they can incentivize the things we do want to see, like circular jobs. So for example, they could tax capital and not tax labour as we go forward. Maybe start to think about that. They could tax virgin material use that would incentivize recycling, for example. And as is already coming, you know, we're going to have EPR for packaging, and that will have fee modulation in it, which will incentivize design in packaging to be more recyclable, and products to be more repairable would be another thing to focus on. Where, you know, little is going on in that space in the policy arena. So if government could do something there, that would be moving us forward more quickly.
Well, we've got one question from the floor, which I'll ask before we move on to the panel, which is there any indication in your research whether circular jobs have better wages?
Better than what is the question, but would be the question. But what we did show is that circular jobs are decently paid jobs. There is a range. There's a range of sectors, a range of activities, but as we found, core circular jobs are paying on average 183% above London's living wage. So whether London's living wage is a comparator is a question, but if the question's really about are they decent jobs, then decently paid jobs, then I would say yes, they are. Okay.
And then I've got one more question, which is about terminology. This question says, in some instances, I may be hiring both enabling core and indirect roles within one business. And the term indirect feels more negative. The questioner wants to know what was the thinking behind the term and how is it defined?
Well, I mean, for this research, we looked around in the literature for definitions, both for circular economy jobs, and I mean, you know, we found a handful of definitions, and we found one from RAP and one from circular economy. And circular economy's methodology is the one we looked at and drew on that and adapted that to develop the definition for Re-London. So though core, enabling and indirect are the terms that are used in circular economy's methodology, that's why we use them. There's no, I mean, I was thinking about it as it's kind of being further along the supply chain. Yeah, so the enabling sectors would be closer to the core sectors and the indirect would be just further along. So it's the system as a whole that matters, but some activities are, you know, more connected.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, thank you both, and thank you to Valpak as well for doing this research for us. I mean, it's truly remarkable, and I think certainly for me, there are loads more questions that I'd like to ask in terms of future research. So I think we'll have lots more to present in the fullness of time. So thanks, Pete. Thanks, Sarah, for your contribution today. And now I'm going to move on to our panel discussion. So we have a fantastic panel with some people who are working in the areas that we're talking about right now and have some insight into all of the things that we've been discussing. So I am going to ask all of our panel to introduce themselves briefly. If they could introduce themselves, say what they do, who they work for, and maybe just identify their interest in this particular the circular economy. You've got a minute each, and I'm going to start with Barry Mortimer.
Thank you very much, Wayne. Good morning, everyone. My name is Barry Mortimer. I am the West London Green Skills Hub Coordinator. The Green Skills Hub is a virtual hub, and it was launched at the end of March, beginning of April, following a successful competitive bid to the Mayor's Academies programme. The Academy's programme sprang from the London Recovery Board, and it identified 5 sectors that present opportunities for Londoners to find good work. Those 5 sectors are green, creative, health and social care, digital and hospitality. The aim of the Green Skills Hub is to help Londoners hardest hit by the pandemic. That is our core focus. And that's to help those people get the skills, experience and ultimately jobs. One of the key things that we will be doing as we set out on this, because the hub is, very, very new, is about collaboration, bringing people together, encouraging collaboration, building partnerships, and we'll be working with employers, training providers, unions, trade associations, charities, local authorities, many others. And the geographical remit of the hub is the 7 West London boroughs, which are Barnet, Brent, Ealing, Hammersmith and Fulham, Harrow, Hillingdon and Hounslow.
Great, thanks, Barry. Could I ask George Barrett to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, thanks, Wayne. Morning, everyone. Delighted to be here. So I'm George Barrett. I'm the Circular Economy Lead at the John Lewis Partnership. So my role is ultimately to lead the development and integration of our circular economy strategy across our 2 brands, Waitrose and John Lewis. So the role is incredibly broad, spanning food, packaging, tech, furniture, textiles, and then all of the goods that we don't sell and are ultimately integral to our operations. I think our programme has 4 main pillars, so new circular business models. How do we introduce those eco-design or circular design principles into our product development process? Public affairs, so how do we engage with those stakeholders, key stakeholders like government and NGOs? And then also those big customer propositions, how do we shift those customer mindsets and behaviours? But really interesting to hear that research shared earlier, because a lot of this is how we transform existing business models and bring about those broader organisational changes that we want to see.
Brilliant, thanks, George. And can I ask Linda to introduce herself, please?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm also very delighted to be here. I'm an impact lead on social sustainability at H&M Group head office based in Stockholm. And my role is really to make sure that we have fair jobs across our value chain. And then particularly thinking of circular economy, my role is to secure that we, in our journey to become fully circular as a business, secure that that's going to be a just transition for all people across our value chain.
Thanks, Linda. Martin, can I ask you to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, hello everybody. My name is Martin Baxter. I'm Policy and External Affairs Director and Deputy Chief Exec at the Institute of Environmental Management and Assessment, IEMA. We're the membership body for sustainability professionals. Many of our members are doing the type of work that George and Linda have been outlining in terms of helping to shift their organisations to ones which are circular in terms of materials use and net zero in their operations and supply chains, etc. Really, from my perspective, a lot of the work that we do is how do we develop those enabling policies at national level that support the transition to circular economy, net zero economy at scale and at pace. And as part of my role, I'm also a member of the government's Green Jobs Delivery Group. So that's looking at how we accelerate this process and really make sure we've got the skills and capacity needed to make these really big transitions.
Great, thanks, Martin. So I've got a series of questions for you all. So I'll kind of call you out and ask questions. But if at any point you want to contribute, please don't hesitate to jump in, and we'll try and keep it free flowing. We've got about half an hour. So my first kind of piece.
Wayne, sorry to interject. I'm just conscious we haven't introduced Miranda.
I'm Miranda. Beg your pardon, Miranda.
Last but not least,
yeah,
hi everybody.
Sorry,
great, no problem. Great to be here. So just quickly, before we get into the discussion, I'm head of growth at Thrift Plus, and our mission is to prevent fashion waste. We're a startup and secondhand resale platform aiming to make it easy to get unwanted clothing back into circulation to lower the environmental impact of fashion. And our sellers simply fill a thrift bag, send it into us and return it for free, and we do the work to sell their clothes for them online. Since our first sale in 2018, we've circulated about 350,000 items of clothing and raised 1.5 million for charity, together with our partners and customers. And I'm really interested in this report, particularly because it looks at the system of circularity, and we see our role as helping to enable the circular economy for fashion. And there are great insights for us to think about the role we play within that system. So back to you, Wayne.
Yeah, thanks, Miranda. Sorry about that. It's still got my head in 2020, as you can see. Right, so let's crack on then. The first set of questions to Linda and George. You're both large businesses. You've explicitly signed up to become more circular. So can I ask you, in what ways are you becoming more circular, and have you identified the skills and roles you need to make it happen, and what kind of training and development are you putting in place? So shall we go to Linda first?
Absolutely, we can do so. So yes, H&M Group is really focusing on becoming fully circular, and we have a goal saying that we want to decouple our growth by reducing our resource use by 2030, and we want to cut our CO2 emissions by half by 2030. But how do we do that, and what do we focus on? We focus a lot on the products, of course, and the design part. So by 2025, we want all our products to be designed for circularity. And when it comes to materials, we want by 2030 to make sure that all materials are either sustainably sourced or recycled materials. So that is sort of like externally shared, so we have the eyes on us. And I think that's also good sometimes, to really speed up. But when we look into our work with circularity, we are sort of looking into three main areas. So design, product, and material, as I just described. And then we focus on our different supply chains, mainly production supply chain and logistics supply chain. And here we really want to secure that we have systems in place that enable circular production processes, but also material flows. And last but not least, offering our customers different circular services such as rental, reuse, resell, etc. And this is really something that we are piloting in different countries and see what we can scale up. But at the moment, we can really see that there is a great interest in the resell part, and something that we also are offering customers in different markets as of today. And then thinking about the question about skill development and investments. Yes, we know, or I should say that we already today provide all designers within H&M Group trainings focusing on circular design. And this is a training that we have created together with external partners and are offering already today. But when it comes to other skills that will be needed, it is challenging to know already today what we need to focus on, right? And therefore it's so great to be joining a panel like this panel today to hear from the others, because I think we really need to collaborate to find these skills and also to discuss roles and responsibilities in this transition. What do we as a business and a buyer in the textile industry, what is our role and responsibility? But what we can see already today is, of course, that the shift to become circular is, of course, very much connected to automation and digitalization. And what impact will that have on people in different supply chains? And where we see skill gaps in terms of sort of our offering towards customers is really sorting and repairing. And this is something that we are trying to see where we can be a part of the solution and invest in those skill investments. But I'll stop there and let George speak as well.
George.
Yeah, thanks for that, Linda. I think that there are many parallels there between the targets, commitments we've got, but also the approaches we're taking with some of those propositions, whether that's rental, resale, repair, the kind of product development, designing products to meet circularity criteria. And I think actually it's positive to see that the UK government have maintained regulatory alignment with the EU Green Deal and the Circular Economy Action Plan that's coming out of the European Commission. We could have taken a different tact here, and that could have been quite regressive. So it is positive to see that. I would say, you know, the partnership, we've got a reasonable track record in this space. We've had certain propositions live for a decade now, but there is much more we need to do to really integrate circularity into core business processes, culture, and those kind of conventional products and customer services and journeys that we used to. We do have some, I suppose, more circular jobs already kind of existing. We have repair centres in our distribution centres that work on returns and make sure they're fit for purpose, so that they can go back on sale. So we have kind of a significant number of those jobs already, but many of those have just been created organically because it makes sense. It makes sense commercially for the business. We said there's that kind of value add and the triple win earlier. But increasingly, we are trying to identify where are those future skills or future roles that we're going to need to develop. So it might be innovation leads, it might be business architects, it might be service designers, UX, UI experts. And I think increasingly we have to operate in more matrix ways and try to take circularity out of sustainability teams and into businesses. If we're really trying to kind of intervene and I suppose shift existing business models, well, that will involve touching every distinct business area. So we have to operate in a more matrix way. We do the stuff around kind of training and product development and all that kind of stuff, but I think there is a need here as well to be quite, I think, pragmatic with our time and our focus. I think one of the things we haven't got quite yet is that big metric, that big circularity metric to drive culture and organizational change in one direction. But also I think we need to be quite pragmatic with our business leaders and our senior executives' time, really. As we all know, sustainability, net zero, circularity is a complex and nuanced topic. And therefore, if we're going to them with kind of big targets and big goals, we need to be quite clear. So I do think there's a need to balance, is the circular economy an enabler of broader green net zero jobs, or is it distinct? And I think that's a kind of complexity that we need to be cautious of. Anyway, back to you, Wayne.
Okay, thanks. That's interesting, and it's certainly something that we are discussing in the public realm. How do you distinguish green from circular, and indeed whether that's a distinction that needs to happen? But I'm just going to bring Miranda into the conversation. I'd be interested to know what kind of skills you're recruiting for, because I mean you're a business that we have defined as core circular. So this basically means that in our definition, every job you have is a circular economy job. So do you think the skills that you're recruiting for are different from a linear business?
I think it's an interesting one because, as you say, as a circular business, all of our roles, whether they're tech, UX, products, marketing, even in the warehouse, they all play a role in enabling the circular economy for fashion. So for us, other than kind of hard skills, which I think are important, like data analytics and impact measurement and understanding the role we play. So if we get people to buy secondhand over new clothes, what is the ultimate impact of that and how does it help to lower the environmental impact of fashion? Those are the sort of hard skills or kind of knowledge areas we'll increasingly need as we scale. But for now, I think really it's about mindset and passion really for creating change. So the three main things we look for are kind of collaboration, creativity, and resilience. On the collaborative side, we're very much focused on collaborating with major brands and retailers, but also other startups. And we're focused on that system change that's been drawn out as so important in the report. Creativity, we're trying to grow as a business, but we measure our success through the number of people we can switch to shopping secondhand and the ultimate impact we have on fashion. So we need people who can be very creative at solving problems. So for example, my role as head of growth, if you want to grow in fashion, you can discount or run sales, which tend to create overconsumption, and we don't want to do that. So it's about that creativity to think about how we can grow as an organization and shift behavior without just kind of defaulting to business as usual techniques, which you typically see in linear businesses. And finally, resilience. Circularity is a major shift to the whole economy that affects all sectors and all individuals. And it is quite challenging, and it requires kind of imagination and a willingness to keep chipping away even when it's really hard, and there are lots of disincentives to creating that change. So I think what's exciting about reports like this and events like these is it's a coming together of multiple people from diverse different parts of the economy and to help create that change together. So that speaks to the resilience plus the creativity plus the collaboration needed.
Okay, well, that's interesting. I'm just going to throw this out to anybody who wants to come in at this point. Do you think there are any specific enablers that we need to make change happen, to transform London's workforce to become more circular? And a secondary question, I suppose, is, are there any significant barriers that we need to overcome? I'm going to ask, maybe I'll ask Martin to have you got any thoughts on that particular question?
Yeah, I mean, I think, George touched on one point, and I think, it's that policy certainty. So, you have to have the confidence that if you are going to start to invest and upskill people for a particular purpose, that actually having done so, then those jobs and the roles that are either being created new or are going to be used in full. I think, one of those challenges is timescales. How fast do we need to go, and how long does it take to get somebody up to speed and able to do the work that's required? So again, George mentioned repair centres. How long does it take to train somebody to be able to repair different types of, for example, white goods or electronics, etc., and be able to do that and certify those products as being able to go back onto the market. So we need to understand a combination of policy certainty. We need to understand timing and timescales, and then we need to understand that there's a capacity issue as well. So how many people do we need doing this, and in what particular places? Because quite a lot of this has a spatial element as well as a kind of in different parts of our system. So getting all of those things right and that cross collaboration between different organisations as part of an overall system are some of those key ingredients that, if you get them working well and you can coordinate that, then you can move quite quickly. But if you can't get all of those elements working together, then you end up with bottlenecks, and that can slow things down.
I'm going to ask you one more question, Martin, and I'm going to ask Barry a question and bring him into the conversation. But first, I know you've just published your own report on green skills with Deloitte. I guess I wanted to ask you, have you seen any good examples of circular training or skills development, or is that a distinction that you don't recognise because you're more focused on, shall we say, green skills?
Well, I think, that there's clearly a big intersection between green skills and circular economy skills. And in some points, the distinction probably isn't necessary. I think when we start to look at how we build up design teams, so design for circularity can't be design for circularity without considering climate change, because otherwise we end up solving one particular problem, which is how resources flow around the economy and how we can optimize. But if we then just shift a burden to another part of the system, say climate system, then that's not kind of delivering on sustainability. So we do look at how you package these things together in an integrated way across the system. I think in terms of some of the specific challenges that we will face in terms of skills challenges. So, for example, packaging technologists, the extended producer responsibility, which is coming through, really does need a lot more packaging technologists who are going to be able to support redeveloping packaging materials. There aren't enough, according to some of the research, to be able to do that at the scale that we need and at the pace that we need. So that needs some, careful consideration. I think as well, another one which is coming down the track is, the Environment Act introduces powers for government to set requirements around product durability, around repairability, availability of spare parts, etc. And so, and to be able to communicate all of this information to consumers. So question is, how fast will government introduce and act on the powers that it's created and given itself in the Environment Act? And then what's required in terms of skills development programs to enable that to happen? And what pieces of the jigsaw in terms of the overall system are needed to be put in place to enable that to happen? So some interesting challenges are across the circular economy aspect, which do, flow into green jobs and skills as well.
Right, thanks, Martin. I mean, that allows me to segue seamlessly into a question to Barry. So I wonder, Barry, if you could just explain what the Green Skills Hub is, and does it include any elements of circularity as you recognise it?
It certainly does. I suppose at the heart, the Green Skills Hub is a collaboration which centres on creating pathways into work for Londoners, whether that's through training, through programmes, or even just raising awareness of the opportunities in the various sectors. And it will involve bringing people together, organisations, employers, training providers and others. And in fact, a lot of what we will be doing will build on the model of the Mayor's, the West London Construction Hub. So at the moment, I'm sort of in transition, moving from construction to green skills, but for the last 3 years, in West London, we've been running a construction hub, and many of the ways that we will work will build upon what we've learnt via construction. But essentially, we're setting up a number of groups. There is a training provider group, which is FE colleges, HEs, higher education, and independent training providers. That's been meeting now for about over a year, and they were instrumental in putting in the bid. We're mapping at the moment what green skills training there is available, and that group will be instrumental in terms of setting up new programs, new training. There's going to be an employer board, which we found hugely beneficial in construction, and that will bring together around the table employers and training providers. And in effect, the employers will be sort of critical friends of the training providers. There'll be a partner group, which again, around the table, we'll be bringing together lots of organisations and all of the local authorities working in this area to kind of share best practice, to collaborate and team up. And out of this, we will be running lots of events, training and job fairs, workshops tackling specific issues. And finally, the kind of core focus for the hub will be 5 areas, and they will of course be circular economy, including waste and recycling, but also retrofit and energy efficiency, that's making domestic houses more energy efficient, low carbon transport, green spaces, and what we've dubbed sort of light green skills.
And are there any particular demographics or sectors that you'll be focusing on?
Yeah, we've been, all the hubs are set KPIs by the GLA. So we've got a fairly, as you would expect, wide-ranging set of KPIs. Overall, they centre on helping Londoners, as been sort of mentioned earlier, most adversely affected by the pandemic. Core audiences have been identified as people from underrepresented groups, Black, Asian and minority ethnic groups, women, young people, 16 to 24s, NEETs, older people aged 50 plus, lone parents, people with caring responsibilities, people who are deaf or have disabilities. There's a very broad range of target audiences that we are charged and very much looking forward to helping, but also just finally bringing in new employers, engaging with new employers, and getting them to participate in training, in education, in offering work placements, etc., all in the realm of green skills.
That's amazing. I mean, I want to just come back to George, Miranda and Linda. So I think we've all touched upon or talked specifically about collaboration and partnering. And And I guess supply chains currently are long and complex. And one of the things about the circular economy is making those supply chains shorter. So how can we collaborate to make circular jobs a reality? Is there anything that we can do better that we're not doing, or anything that government, in the context that we're having this conversation today, or London can do to help make those collaborations and those circular jobs a reality?
I can probably kick off and then I can hand over. So thanks for that, Wayne. Yeah, really interesting question. I think from a collaborative perspective, I think there's just a need to just change the way we think if we're going to really unlock the circular economy. I think there's a lot of just kind of habitualized ways of working. So there are some great startups in the materials space that look at how can we almost recirculate or create new exchanges for surplus materials. But actually, one of the things we're finding most valuable is getting all of our what you call them waste and recycling partners that we work with just simply in a room together. And they might work in entirely different sectors, but actually opening up that conversation seems to have some real merit. And the same with supply chains. Last year, we launched a new product using wool from our UK lamb supply base, which due to shrinking in the export markets for wool, farmers were actually burning and dumping their fleeces. So we actually managed to collaborate, bring Waitrose and John Lewis together to create an end market for that wool as a fitting material for our mattresses. And some of these suppliers were actually saying they never really thought about engaging in this way. So we've just got to try and create a platform for conversation around this. And then to go back on something Barry mentioned earlier, there's a fantastic opportunity here to provide new jobs, roles, skills, opportunities for underprivileged areas of society. We're doing a lot of work at the minute trying to take people or individuals who are leaving the care sector, but I know there are waste and recycling companies out there that work with HMP academies, and there could be something that the government can play a role there in how do you encourage or remove some of the barriers that discourage businesses to take up I'd say individuals from areas of society that may not be considered or that we normally think about.
Thanks. Linda, did you want to come in, or Miranda?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I just want to add then maybe more from an industry perspective and not specifically London here, but really to invite all stakeholders to the table so everyone are represented. I mean, government representatives, trade unions, employer associations, buyers like ourselves, and really, instead of only focusing on collaboration, also to take collaboration to co-creation. I mean, we need to co-create the solutions together, and then we need to be inclusive in that journey. So yeah, just echoing the dialogue and the need that is there to really find the solutions together.
I mean, Miranda, my take on collaboration is there has to be competition. That's still a part of a circular economy, but by collaborating on the things that benefit us all, we all win, and then we're all able to compete. How do you, because there are other players in your space, so how does that work with clothing?
So I think in secondhand specifically, the secondhand fashion industry is growing about 11 times faster than new clothing. Wow. So there's a huge amount of room. Consumers are becoming more aware of the importance of sustainability. As the cost of living increases, secondhand fashion is often more affordable. So there are also kind of economic incentives. I think because secondhand businesses have been very high profile recently, like Depop, people think it's quite a crowded space, but it's so nascent. Less than 10% of people in the UK are regularly buying secondhand clothes. So there's so much room, and there's room for competition. Is great because it drives up standards and it gives people a better experience, and the better experience we can offer, the more we can attract people to business models which have a lower environmental impact. So I think competition plays a really important role. But the role for collaboration I see that's really important are things like sharing data and insights. There's no point all of us collecting data separately on shifting consumer behavior. And things like, for example, we provide ASOS, who we recently launched a partnership with, data on how well their items resell, and then we feed that back to them so they can fold it into their product development. So I think sharing some of that data and those insights and pooling resources is important. And as well as all of that collaboration, I think there's of course always a role for government. One of the things I notice is all of the partners we work with have their own standards they've developed themselves, and that creates a lot of fragmentation and duplication, and they're holding themselves accountable to a standard they deem as achievable, and some firmer requirements around the role companies need to play and the standards they need to meet, I think is really valuable, just so that we accelerate that shift, because at the moment the change is gradually happening, and moving any industry in the right direction takes time, but we need to drastically accelerate the progress, given the rate of the climate crisis and how little time we have to solve both that and all of the challenges around waste we see.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a few minutes left. I'm just going to ask Barry and Martin a specific question. We've got a question from the floor, a tricky one for George and Linda, which I'll come to. So about what you do with offcuts from the manufacturing process. So have a think about that, and I'll come back to you. But Barry and Martin, I don't know if you could just kind of briefly say what you think the training and education needs that London and the wider UK economy need more of, both, I guess, right now, but really fundamentally over the next 10 years, in order to address what Miranda, talked about, the clear climate crisis. Barry first.
There's a very big question. I was very, very struck by the stat that's been mentioned before about one job lost in the sort of recycling industry, for 10,000 tons of waste creates 386 jobs in the circular economy. Reading the report last night, I was very struck, and it does sort of bring home two things really: how labour intensive it is, but also just how many jobs could be created. And I think for me, looking at it, there's this sort of there's a top-down approach needed, where we need businesses, organisations, employers to say to themselves, we want to embrace this. Is it going to become part of our culture? And training will be needed right through, in terms of the chief execs, the business planning people, the procurement people in every organisation, and also a sort of a bottom-up approach, so that we're coming at it in terms of revolution from above and evolution as well, in terms of everybody having an understanding of climate, energy efficiency, net zero, just as part of their everyday sort of learning. So we're already looking at bringing in training programs with the training providers, every single student. So whatever they're studying, whatever they're doing, they have an understanding of carbon literacy, net zero, and just working that right the way through the system and taking that to employers and everyone else. A key thing for us will be to explore the gaps, scale up and promote what's working well, and bring it to a larger and a bigger audience. We'll be working with job centres, people with caseloads of unemployed people looking for work, job brokerages, to talk to them and reveal to them the opportunities and where they are. And also running our own programmes and taking construction as a model. We've been running a lot of sector-based work academies, working with unemployed people, training with them and getting them into jobs, and that's working well. And actually looking at the training output of absolutely everything and looking at it critically and saying, where is the elements of net zero, carbon literacy, climate emergency, and absolutely everything that's going on. And finally, the hub opens up opportunities to make bids for capital and programme funds, which if successful, can really substantially make a difference, because obviously to do things at scale does require funding, which money is always going to be an issue.
Indeed.
And a need.
We're nearly out of time. Martin, could I ask you just briefly the same same question. Maybe, what do you think the skills we need in the next 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are some general skills which are key enablers. So things like problem solving and reframing, clearly data analytics really are going to underpin this transformation to a large extent. Systems thinking and understanding. So the ability of people to do those core things aren't specific to repairing technology, white goods, etc. is very, very different than enhancing I don't know, kind of repairing bikes or something like that. So you've got some very specific technical skills which will be product or service dependent, but there are an awful lot of core underpinning skills which, if everybody had them, we would have those key enablers across the economy, which would allow us to go much faster. And I think focusing on those to start with, from awareness raising to developing knowledge centres and supporting people along that journey would be really, really helpful.
Great. Well, we have to move on. We could talk about this for the next, well, I was going to say the next hour, but maybe the next hours. There is a question from the floor, but maybe I'd ask Linda and George just to kind of think about that, and we could maybe respond to that in the chat. It seems to me clearly that the skills that we require are as broad, if you like, as they are deep. And this is something that we'll touch upon, as we've said, all our lives over the next coming years. So look, I want to thank you all very much for your contribution today. We really appreciate it. And thank you for joining us on our CE Week launch event. I'm now going to hand over to Dr. Liz Goodwin. Liz is the chair of Re-London, and she's going to take over hosting the final part of our event today. So if I can hand over to Liz.
Thank you very much, Wayne. Fascinating discussion. Thank you very much to all those panelists. Really interesting to hear your views and your perspective. So we're going to carry on with the skills and training discussion a little bit further. And it's my pleasure to introduce Nani Pajunen, who's a leading specialist in sustainability solutions theme area in the Finnish Innovation Fund, Sitra. And Nani's goal is to promote solutions where global market economy is based on sustainable use of resources, so spot in line with everything we're talking about today. And Nani's been working as a consultant and a specialist in the industry, but she's also led research and development projects involving cooperation between companies and universities. So Nani, I'm hoping you're going to tell us more about some of that collaboration between industry and university providers. Over to you, Nani.
Thank you so much, and it's great to be here with you, and thank you. So interesting discussions and presentation. I'm really happy to tell a few words about Finnish experiences, what we have done in previous years. So like we heard in the beginning of this session, that we are talking about world economy, and we have known already 50 years that we are overusing natural resources, and that's why we have huge challenges such as climate change and biodiversity loss. And now we really need to make changes in a global economy. And what does it mean? We have different levels. We can start from the sectoral level. We need to make changes in all the sectors of the society. When we make this transition towards carbon neutral circular economy society, it's not only a business of engineering or construction industry or mining or food, but we need to understand that all of these sectors are important, and in national level, local level, and global level as well. And when we talk about future, we need to learn from the past. If we look at the world from the material perspective, natural resources perspective, we need to recycle more. At the moment, in global level, only 10% of the materials are coming back in the use after the first use. So we really need to work hard to make this happen more efficiently from the material perspective. And all the materials and products ever produced in this world are coming to the end someday. And we need to learn from those mixed materials if there are some harmful chemicals and so on, that in the future we are not using that kind of mixed materials. So really important part of the circular economy is the beginning of the life cycle, how we develop new materials, how we design new products. And what have we done in Finland? 2016, we published a circular economy roadmap. It was not only a strategy paper, but it was an action plan, how to make this really happen in Finland. We started with a collaboration in different sectors and different organizations, both public and private sector, more than 100 collaborative projects. And key in all of those projects were understanding of skills and competencies. What kind of skills and competencies we need when we make changes in mining industry or process industry, or what does it mean in different services, and what kind of new business models do we need in this circular economy. And in the beginning of this work in Finland, 2016, we wanted to integrate education sector really deep in this work, because we saw in the beginning that we need different kind of professionals also in the future. And all of these professionals, they need to understand what does carbon neutral circular economy means for them as a lawyer, as an engineer, as a farmer, and so on. There were two things we were discussing in the beginning of this work. We know that many of young people are afraid of the future because they don't see that there will be a good future for them. And we believe that when they know how to be part of this change, they also find hope for sustainable future. So education can give hope for all of us, not only the young ones, but all of us, because we don't know what kind of futures we are going to have, but we know that we have different kind of professionals there, and all of those professionals will be circular economy professionals as well. And via education, we can do that. We started a program, education program, in 2017. We funded more than 5 million euros, the Finnish education sector, how to create circular economy education in all the levels of the Finnish school system from the different perspectives. From the year 2019, we have had courses in circular economy in all of the levels of the Finnish school system from different perspectives like construction, chemistry, food, business, art, and so on. The first target for us was to focus on young ones who are at school or students at the moment. After this first target, we started to work with the lifelong learning perspective. All of us who are already in working life, we also need new kind of skills and competencies. How can we help all of us to find our role in this transition? And at the moment, we are having these kind of projects. I pick few examples how to teach circular economy. I love this example. It's a board game. You can start a new business. You have some kind of skills and resources and strength, and then you start by playing a new company. We also need to teach the teachers how can they integrate circular economy in their courses. We published a book to help teachers to integrate these new kind of teaching models in their present courses. And I need to underline the collaboration, importance of collaboration. This climate university is a huge network of Finnish universities and universities of applied sciences. They create together new courses in sustainability, climate change, circa economy. And wherever you study, it doesn't matter for the students which university you study, you can pick these courses. And this is really important in this transition to collaborate, also in businesses, but also in universities and universities of applied sciences, the whole education sector. We have also made a survey, how does the circular economy change jobs in Europe? We focus especially in the EU Circular Economy Action Plan sectors, plastics, textiles, construction, and electronics. These all things I now present here are open and free to download from Sitra's web pages. So please, you can look afterwards what there are about circular economy education. So what skills are needed? We need different kind of skills in different professionals. We need understanding of materials. Some of us will be deep in circular economy, like if you develop new materials or design new products. But we also need enablers, like you said in your talk, that we need financing sector, how to fund this transition. And we need more skills on repairing and maintaining goods. And then we need services skills. And we all need creativity, how to plan a new economy, global economy, starting from the local level and growing to the global level. Via value nets, I think global industrial value nets are the really important way to make this transition happen. So how does it look like in industrial sector like electronics? How your work is going to change if you are in the beginning of the life cycle, how you develop new materials, that those are long lasting, and in the end of life, we can recycle those. And can you use more recycled materials when you develop new materials? Or when you design products, can you think in a new way? Is this maybe the possibility to sell the service more than products? Because we need to also understand that we can't produce as much as we used to. And what kind of new business models we can find in this life cycle. And same in textiles. How do we see textiles in our everyday life? What kind of sustainable textiles we want to buy in the future? How do we see, again, in the material development phase, how to make changes there? And how to use more and more recycled materials there. At the moment, we are working on a vocational training. We see that that's the one part where we still are missing education. We have in Sitra, we have 4 pilot projects going on at the moment. 2 of those are on construction industry. One is focused on chemistry, and one is a model for small and medium-sized mechanical engineering industry. And these pilot projects I think they will be ready in this fall, so we can continue this work also in vocational training after these projects. How to move forward? I have to again say that the most important thing is to collaborate. All of the industrial projects we started 2016, they were going hand in hand in education sector. Whenever we saw that there are some lack of know-how or skills, we immediately put education sector within industrial sector project, and they started to think how to educate people in the future that we can somehow we don't have that lack anymore in the future. And we, of course, we need to make this transition so that all of us can find our place in this change and our role. So we need to help all the people in different professional and different sector to be part of this change. And what we do need, we need thinkers and doers, we need actions, because we have biodiversity loss and climate change, and we are overusing natural resources. So we need to act today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nani. That's very interesting, and bringing out the importance of collaboration, and that's come, I think, through everything that everyone said this morning. We've got a question from the floor, but I don't think we have any time to take it at the moment. So Nani, I wonder if you could answer that in the chat. It's about what's the uptake of reusable nappies in Finland and how are the barriers being overcome. So I'll leave you to answer that one in the chat. And now I'd like to move on to get the local government perspective, really important. And I'm delighted to welcome Mayor Philip Glanville from Hackney to talk to us and give us the government perspective. We've heard a lot from businesses and others this morning, but it's really important to know how important it is to local government for our communities. Philip.
Thank you, Liz. I've been here in the background for nearly all of this morning, and it's just really powerful to see the report. And wanted to thank really Wayne, London, Deputy Mayor Rodrigues, Sarah and Peter for the presentation, yourself, Liz, and all those that worked on the panel. And I think the perspective Nani's just given has been also really important. I'm chair, as it says on the slide, of Transport and Environment Committee for London Councils, also Mayor of Hackney, and I'm going to speak to both, hopefully in the next 8 to 10 minutes. I think what the report does for me is redefine, as we've said, that what sort of circular jobs are and how they can deliver for London and our really ambitious climate targets. And if we do crack this in London, the real opportunities for London's economy, but also I think there is something about places and circular economies, really hyper-local responses that I'll move on to when I talk about Hackney. We've been working on this agenda, as has been sort of hinted at before, through the Green New Deal, which is a collaboration of London's councils and the Mayor of London. It's part of one of the 9 recovery missions, and I co-chair an advisory group with Deputy Mayor Rodrigues. Central to that is looking at the skills challenges and gaps, but how we can double the size of the green economy. And I think this report, and Wayne's part of that work, really energizes how we view the circular economy. And that prize, that really important prize of 300,000 new jobs, given where we're looking at in terms of growth, and also the resilience that will bring to London's economy if we act in that way. And I think what the panel showed is that business, civic society, local government, our structures, the sub-regional structures, are all really committed to working together on this agenda, seeing it as a system rather than just a sector, and that narrow definition. The core is obviously vital. It's where a lot of the energy for the circular economy has come from, but it is no longer a sort of view that's just fit for purpose, and so expanding upon that. And the prize of that economy, environment and jobs dividend, I think, is really, really important. I think a lot of work through the Mayor's skills work is happening already. We heard from sort of West London perspective. I know that there are various hubs across London and a real focus and excitement around the skills agenda, but I don't think any of us can be complacent that we've got there yet. And I think the point about being active in that space in schools and those basic literacy skills around the climate and the circular economy, but also colleges, university and adult learning and reskilling, because it will be a reskilling piece that will also help with just transition. And we know that there are some real lessons and importance there as we see some sectors shrink and other sectors grow in London. We know that there are also the sort of technical and data skills that local authorities and businesses will need to be able to navigate this system are also really important. There are clearly centres of excellence already across London being supported by local authorities, whether it's the sort of library of skills works, refill stores, plastic-free retail. Our street markets, I think, are a really good example of the circular economy if done right. We've got the sort of fixer movement, repair shops, and I know that London is working with over 350 circular SMEs and startups, and I think they're a powerful tool to expanding that local economy. And people talked about active travel and obviously supporting cycling as well. When it comes to London councils, we have jointly been leading the work with the Mayor of London, but also most of us as London boroughs have declared a climate emergency, as was referenced, and we set up those really ambitious thematic programmes, the 7. I think the most relevant here is the green economy work being led by Hounslow, but also the One World Living work being led by Harrow. And they really underpin our work. And I think the Hounslow work around green job skills, green finance and investment, innovation enterprise and green economy work really come to link together. And there's a role for green finance, I think here in scaling up this circular economy. And perhaps that's a discussion we need to take into our wider finance work as we go forward. I really do want to emphasise how much we are supporting and leading this work in partnership. I think what Harrow has been doing with London, and we saw it at COP, is looking at the contribution the One World Living programme can make to net zero. It's really important that we energise that work with this report, but when it comes to electricals, they've been convening around work with Hammersmith and Fulham, looking at repair needs directory and reusing, and the experience of drop-off points and reuse hubs. London itself launched that food waste report at COP. I know Hackney's been doing work with the GLA on a joint action plan, looking at land use, diet, food waste, food procurement, and a circular economy. On plastics, Richmond has been leading, and then on textiles, Wandsworth as part of that wider West London work, looking at textiles and home collection. We are bringing together a workshop for borough officials, members and other stakeholders on Wednesday as part of the Local Authority Day of Action within Circular Economy Week, and I hope that people will take this report into those discussions. In conclusion, I think there are also some opportunities within the Environment Act and how we unpack that for London, as was referenced by some of the panel earlier. And I think there are still regulatory changes we want to see around right to repair. We welcome the insights of the report. I think that ongoing skills gap is absolutely vital that we land that and we think about that in the context of levelling up and shared prosperity funds. And we have always said that there's a vital role for local government here in linking into active citizens that want to see local authorities really shaping and leading this agenda. And I think there's a powerful conclusions in the report for that. Just in my sort of final minute or so, we, as I said, in Hackney have been really committed to the food work. We have two library of things pieces of work. We've been looking at how the funding that we have been putting into economic recovery can support this agenda. This week we're doing work with Plastic Free Hackney, a reusable nappy network event. We have been leading through our Zero Waste Hackney and Zen Work, Zero Emissions Network work with business and trying to divert waste from the first place. Really, really important. Close swaps, repair events and days, zero waste hubs. And we are now doing that detailed work around our own workforce and skills and looking at how we enhance our local green economy and turn it into that truly circular economy. So a quick canter through there is on some of the work that we have been doing, both London-wide supporting this agenda, the leadership of individual boroughs and Hackney's ambition. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I mean, I'm just sitting here reflecting that it is actually really so encouraging that everybody seems to be putting in the same direction, you know, government, businesses, and increasingly the discussion about circular economy is mainstream. It's becoming part of the core programs of boroughs, of businesses, because everyone can see that it has benefits for the economy, environmentally and socially. So that's really encouraging to see. So thank you very much, Phil. Okay, so I just wanted to say up a few words by way of summing up and closing. First of all, I want to thank everybody who's been involved this morning. Really interesting contributions regarding the report from Sarah and Pete, fascinating panel discussion, and really useful to hear from Nani, and then finally from Phil. So thank you very much, everybody, for coming. Thank you for the team who organised the event this morning. That I know a lot of work goes on behind the scenes, so thank you. And then you can just see on this final slide, there's a whole load of things happening during the course of this week. And if you go into the platform, you'll be able to see, I think it's many, I think it's around 50 different events happening during the course of the week. So please do look in and see what might interest you, and make sure you get involved in some of them, because I think they cover all sorts of areas and all sorts of different aspects of the circular economy. As Wayne said at the beginning, this is one of a series of circular economy weeks, and the momentum is growing all the time, which is really important, because we need to move faster towards getting a circular economy. So with that, I will close the meeting, and thank you very much, everybody, for taking the time to join us. I hope you found it interesting, and move on to lots of other useful and interesting sessions throughout the rest of the week. Thank you.